Hello, good day and good evening. Welcome to this very special episode of the CTSA Simply Reds podcast. Why is it special, you might ask? Well, firstly, because last week I was as miserable as I'd ever heard myself. But I'm buoyant tonight, as for the first time in 2025, we have Sam Jordan back on the podcast. His first appearance since December. Woo, yeah, Sam Jordan. And secondly, and some might say more importantly, this episode is being videoed and uploaded to the CTSA Simply Reds YouTube channel for everyone who wishes to watch as eyebrows raise and jaws drop at what might be revealed tonight and in future pods when we actually discuss football. Spoiler, tonight is not the night to discuss football, and thank goodness, because I don't think anyone wants to relive what took place on Saturday afternoon. So without further ado, Sam Jordan, welcome back. How are you?
I'm all right. I've just got to remember not to pick my nose. And I'll be all right, I suppose.
Lovely, lovely. Well, there is a reason that you've come back on today, so we will jump right into it. And let's start off with some serious matters, ultimately, surrounding Crawley Town Football Club. I think most recently we will talk about the incident with Tobias Phoenix that took place at the beginning of the month. It appears you were involved in the Tobias Phoenix incident. What happened and what do you make of Preston's comments since?
Yeah, so obviously it was during the Cambridge game, which obviously, as everyone will probably agree, was a must-win game. Cambridge took the lead, and a supporter sat in the West Stand kind of lost his cool. I think he'd say that himself and aimed some words towards Tobias that probably in hindsight he regret. And they were unsavoury, and I think he'd admit that himself. But as I kind of heard that, I turned around to look at what was going on, and I kind of saw Tobias gesturing to the fan to kind of meet him outside. And perception's a wonderful thing, isn't it? In life, if you look at a number 6 from one angle, you look at a number 6 from another angle, it could be number 9. So I think I know what I saw. A lot of people around me believe they think they know what they saw. Immediately, I went to speak to the stewards. The irony of the matter is, a lot of the stewards I spoke to, who were quite like deputy steward, chief safety officer, etc., didn't even know who Tobias Phoenix was. Which the irony on that was quite humorous. I'm honest with you. They didn't know that he was an employee of the football club. So I kind of pointed towards him, explained what happened, and said someone needs to go have a chat with him. So they went and had a chat with him. And they came back to me and said that he wasn't gesturing to take the fan outside, if you will, for a fight, but it was more, he wanted to have a chat with the fan outside. So I said, well, I'll take him up on the offer. I'll have a chat with him because no one's really heard from him, have they?
No.
So after the game, waited for a considerable amount of time, and he didn't seem keen to talk. And I said, well, I'm not moving. I want to have a chat with him. He's offered a fan to have a chat, apparently, and let's have a chat. So in the end, reluctantly, he had a chat with me. And then we had a conversation, and obviously a lot's happened since then in terms of the supporters tried to get in touch with the club and asked for a meeting to have the chat that Tobias obviously offered him. And it's kind of fell on deaf ears, and Preston's come out and said that Tobias is still contemplating whether he wants to have that chat, which is a bit bizarre to me, because if he's offered him out for a chat during the game, surely he's still have to have that chat. So that's why perception is a wonderful thing, isn't it? Some people might say now, was he actually after a chat, or was he actually after something more? Because if he doesn't want to chat now, we want to chat then, why can't we have a chat now? But only Tobias can answer that. Tobias told me his side of the story privately with someone from the safety team there, and I've obviously got my perception of it. But ultimately, if Tobias is not going to come out and publicly say a story or have a conversation with a fan who, for the record, wants to apologise, and he can't apologise because not wanting to meet him, then we can't really move further forward with that, can we?
Is there anything from that conversation you wish to divulge, or is it going to remain what happened around that table? And as far as it's concerned, it's between now the other supporter and Tobias Phoenix to rectify.
Obviously, we're going to come on to quite a lot tonight. I think today's about me doing right by the Crawley fans and engaging the Crawley fans on some decisions that haven't been made over the last 18 months to 2 years, which I think is right to do. Because ultimately the role I've had to play in the last couple of years isn't about me as an individual, it's about us as a supporter base. Therefore, it's only right that I share the information I've got. So I'm happy to share. Tobias was quite clear that he is an advisor to the football club and hasn't got a set role of director, football sporting director. Obviously, both terms have been used by various clubs officials over a lengthy period of time about his role. I was quite surprised to hear he actually joined the club in November 2023. So
Well,
quite early on in the promotion winning season. And fair play to him. He said he didn't want to take any credit then for the promotion. He doesn't want to take any flack now for the potentially impending relegation. Yeah, so he was very much trying to say that he was an advisor. I gave him some advice that he needs to come out and have a conversation with the fans because he's a bit in the dark, isn't he? A bit of a shady character. No one knows who he is. Um, yeah, he kind of wanted to kind of pass the buck on a lot of things and mention his only advisor. So, but what was interesting to me, and I shared it over the weekend on social media, is and this we'll come on to it in more detail later around the timing of everything, but he actually told me in that meeting with 13 games to go that he felt the score wasn't good enough to stay
wow.
up, which I was quite surprised about as a club employee, whether he's consultant or whatever his official job title is. No one will ever know, I don't think. But I was really surprised by that because we had 13 games to go, 39 points to play with, and ultimately I challenged him back around. Well, a lot of the players that are playing for us, you signed. He said he only signed 4 of them, albeit 3 did play in the Cambridge game. 1 was injured at the time. So yeah, I think it's an absolute PR disaster. Whether Tobias pointed his arm outside for a chat or a fight, the fans come forward. He's asked to have a conversation. Tobias doesn't want to. All it needs to happen was Tobias to say yes. Fan has a conversation, clears the air, shakes hands, move on. I mean, if we look at the Mr. Sorry guy at the fans forum, who got his handshake after the fans forum and all the posts on social media, obviously the club have gone out their way to do a lot for him, but won't talk to the fan that a club official was asked to have a conversation with. Now, doesn't want to have a conversation with. So,
Well, that's
yeah, yeah,
alarming. That's alarming.
yeah,
For many reasons, ultimately, Tobias not necessarily having a defined job role is one for someone who's in comparison for Crawley Town quite high up in the chain, and also the fact that he is still not necessarily willing to meet the fan, and also wondering who is signing some of these players if he's only signed 4 of them for this season. So that is a big concern. You've referenced your position, and let's jump back to not long after WAGMI took charge. You obviously joined the board. What was the purpose of you joining the board, and what impact have you had during your time?
So it was on the back of obviously us nearly exiting the Football League, a lot of fan unrest, and it was kind of discussed between myself, Press, and Evan about doing it. I was very aware at the time, from honestly, that it was a PR exercise. I was very aware that there wasn't kind of set boundaries or job roles laid out to it. Preston did say to me that I could make my own job role, but
That sounds like a
it's all
common
in,
occurrence at the moment.
it's all well and good doing that. But if the clubs don't have board meetings, we're not invited to board meetings, or kind of sometimes my advice fell on deaf ears, sometimes it didn't. To be fair, but yeah, if I'm honest with you, so I've done similar roles with previous ownership across the last 20 to 30 years. And I mean, if to be fair and consistent, not many football clubs do have board meetings, if I'm honest with you. Some do, some don't. But I haven't really experienced many Crawley Town board meetings with Crawley Town with previous owners either. So I think it's important that I'm fair and say that. So yeah, I mean, throughout the WAGMI's ownership, with whether it be me or other people, have had conversations with Press and Eben, and now obviously Ben, but I wouldn't say there's any structure or any structured dialogue to it. Albeit there was conversations at times, which I'm sure we'll come on to. But yeah, I think it was definitely more of a PR exercise than anything from WAGMI's perspective to try and get the fans on board.
Well, it's interesting you reference not being at board meetings, and you know admit that doesn't typically happen or hasn't happened certainly in the past at Crawley Town, and potentially not at other Football League clubs. And you also mentioned how it was probably more of a bit of a PR piece, and in reality, maybe you haven't got a signed job role. You can make your own one up. So how have you worked to act as a bridge between the fans and the owners?
Yeah, I think it's always very difficult because it's very hard to canvass all the opinions of supporters. And when individuals at the football club come to you for ideas, you have to kind of think about what the fans might say. Sometimes you can maybe ask a few, but you can't ask all of them. but the kind of things that they were probably asking or talking to me about were quite easy for me to answer. And they probably could have come to me with more, but they chose not to, and obviously that's their prerogative. Yeah, I've got your question, to be honest, Luke.
It was related to sort of how you've worked to act as a bridge between the owners and the
Yeah,
fans.
so it's difficult. I think it's probably more like they kind of had some questions and they'd ask me and I'd give answers and they'd go away and make their decisions formed on that. But obviously, I haven't been consulted on every decision, but far from it, and I wouldn't expect to be. But some decisions I was consulted on that would impact fans, and some that I haven't been, and some that they've taken my advice and they haven't taken my advice.
So I guess the next question would be: was there anything particular WAGMI did ask your opinion on?
Yeah, quite controversial though.
Go on,
So
do tell, pray tell.
yeah, so the first one was, and I haven't got the timings to hand, but I've got the receipts. Um, Evan Smith was very keen on allowing supporters and NFT holders to have a say on the team selection for the EFL Trophy games.
What, for this season or a previous season?
Not this current season, no. Yeah,
They wanted to do
so
a vote on who to play during a competitive fixture.
yeah, yeah.
That's staggering.
Um, uh,
Wow.
yeah, and kind of, I was trying to play the toe the party line, if you like, play devil's advocate. So I was very much like the Scott no, and Scott wasn't aware. Manager Football Club was not aware of that. They were waiting for the right
Wow, this
time
is.
to put
I
it.
can imagine Scott wouldn't have taken to that very well if that was during the Scott Lindsay
No, they're
reign.
waiting for the right time to put it to him. And I remember my stock answer was, "Let me know when Scott's agreed and come back to me." Because I knew fully, I was fully aware Scott wouldn't agree to it, and
I
also I
can
didn't want to
imagine the
be
sort
the,
of
I,
language being used in that meeting.
I,
Yeah.
I didn't want to be the supporter that allowed football history to take place in terms of recommending or giving the green light for a football club to allow fans to vote on a team selection. Some people are like, I don't really care if a trophy, but it's pretty unprecedented, isn't it, that would happen? And also, surely the manager should be given the opportunity to play players that deserve it. And how players feel about that? If players are being picked by fans, do you know what I mean? Blimey. And there was other ideas about, I don't know, can fans make up a free kick routine or a corner routine
What?
as well? And I remember an email. And this probably sums up my relationship with Eben, who's an interesting character. Is something positive happened. And I remember he sent me an email saying, "Please, can we have the EFL trophy now?" And what he meant by that was, "Please, can I approve his idea?" Um, yeah, I remember it like it was yesterday. So yeah, I was never going to agree to that because that wouldn't be the right thing to do. And I remember at one point I said they had a similar mad idea, and I said, "Oh, let me know." And it was to drive revenue. So I said, "Oh, let me know your projected revenue, and I'll come back to you." Well, of course, never came back to me because they've got no projected anything, did they? So
Yeah.
yeah, so the headline is they wanted to allow NFT holders or supporters to pick a team for a competitive first team fixture.
Pick a whole team or certainly a number of players for a competitive
Yeah.
fixture.
And then obviously with the EFL Trophy, for those who don't know, there is certain requirements of who can play. They must have played a certain amount of games or that season or previous season or total appearances. So there'll be an element of you can just do a blanket fantasy team as you like. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, they're really killing it, really killing it.
So
But
we've
yeah,
heard now that they wanted to let fans pick team, which I'm sure some fans would have been very behind. I'm sure, albeit that certainly we pay season tickets, we pay ticket money, we give the our money to the club to ensure that they are doing what's right for the club, to ensure that we are going to be in the best position possible. And ultimately, the manager would feel undermined, players would feel undermined, coaching staff would feel undermined at basically being told how to do their job.
yeah,
Um,
hire a
and
CEO
especially
to
if
run the
we are
football
also
club.
having to discuss free kick and corner routines, which is, yeah, it's unprecedented. I'm speechless. I can't believe that was ever even mentioned.
Hire a CEO to run the football club, hire a commercial manager to drive commercial revenue, hire a football manager to pick the team. Let the fans enjoy the experience. The fans aren't there to pick the team. Yeah, crazy.
Wow.
Crazy,
Okay.
crazy,
Well,
crazy.
that is, yeah, that's
And obviously,
that's certainly a bombshell.
this was kind of well, this wasn't obviously this season; it was previous seasons. But yeah, it's crazy. And then the other more recent thing, and again, I've got my receipts. So October of this season, October of last calendar year, I had a chat with Ben, and he did actually say before this conversation he'd consider putting an NDA in front of me. But the club have already purchased and ordered a third kit for next season, so a playing kit with a new club crest on.
A new club crest, specifically for the third shirt, though, not for all three
Yep,
shirts.
yep. So the club have designed and ordered a match day playing kit with a new crest on it without any fan consultation at all. Before the results of the brand survey have been released, yeah. And I remember I sat there and I said to him, regardless of what the badge looks like, regardless of what badge you go for, it's all about how you engage the fans. Have you consulted the fans? I
But
said,
that would have
well,
come out.
everything you do is about engagement. That's doesn't. If we go and play in blue, which obviously I wouldn't want, I don't think anyone want. It's about how you sell it, like or how you consult or how you engage. But they've just ordered it, they've paid for it. And I can imagine maybe now after this, it'll just kind of end up in a bin somewhere. They might create a new design, don't know. But I remember, so that was in October, the same month. I remember sending Ben a example of another League One football club who are changing their crest, what they're doing to engage their fan base first, with options fans can pick. In January, I've done the same with another League One club, said, "Oh, look what they're doing." So,
Wow.
and both those clubs, public perception would be that they run quite well, and people can probably work it out by just googling that which clubs they are. But yeah, so that raised me massive alarm bells, and that's part of the reason, Luke, why I chose to step away, because I don't want to be associated with I don't want Ben to say at the end of the season, "Oh, well, we showed Sam this new badge." Well, you did show me this new badge. We didn't consult anyone. It's not my decision to sign off on a new badge,
Yeah.
because it should be options. There should be reasons. Should be consulted. It's not, and some people might not care. Fine, but I don't think I don't sit right with me. Hence why
So,
I didn't. Hence why in the right way I tried to engage Ben around. How about this? Do this engagement. Then the brand survey comes out, and I'm thinking, okay, that's interesting. But yeah, we're now sitting. It's mid-March.
but
Shirts will
that
go
is
on sale in a
interesting,
few
isn't it?
months, and we've got a new crest.
That is interesting because you're saying that took place in October. The brand survey, identity survey, didn't come out until January, was it? Early February?
It was
So
January. It was January.
January. So there's a 3 month, 3 month difference there. Almost done the wrong way round ultimately,
Yeah.
because
So
quite
stop. Take out the fan emotion, Luke. Right. If you're going to change a crest, do the brand survey first.
yeah
Understand the brand before you change the crest. Ignore the fan sentiment, if you're going to engage them or not, which obviously 100% should do, to be clear. But don't do the crest, then the brand. It doesn't make sense. It's crazy, isn't it?
that's and then again it comes down to a lack of understanding of football clubs, football fans. You know, us English football fans are a very unique breed, and that's where you have those conversations with fans, you have conversations with experienced personnel behind the scenes, so faux pas like this don't happen in terms of the way things are done, because it should never be that we're ordering third shirts prior to doing brand surveys and all sorts like that. So that's a real eye opener into what's how the club are running things, and decisions that are being made. But moving on then slightly, how frustrating is it that seemingly the same basic mistakes are continually made, and then there's no sign of that changing from the senior leadership team?
that's the biggest frustration. I mean, if you look at the first season, Preston in the dugout, um, loads of different things in the first season, and it just all boils down to there's nobody running the football club with senior leadership experience. That's a lot of it boils down to that, and we could talk about many examples, and the root cause always goes back to that. And obviously they tried Crawley, they've tried themselves, but ultimately they've got nobody in that football club who is leading the football club with leadership football league experience. That's fact. There's some great people working behind the scenes, but they've either not been given the autonomy to make decisions themselves and lead, or there is no one to do it. So any organisation, whether it's football or any other business, is going to fail when there's no one leading it. So that's ultimately the failings of the last 3 years. And yeah, of course, it's frustrating for everybody when that's the case.
Well, so obviously you stepped away from the role in the last sort of 3-4 weeks. Why did you decide to step away? And I guess why do you think when you announced it was the right time? What was the catalyst for change?
I'll answer a few questions there. In terms of this calendar year, I had a phone call from Carol Bates mid-January on a Friday evening before the Burton game to let me know that she'd had a phone call from someone at the club to remove her volunteer role at doing the mascots. I immediately got onto the phone to the person who made that decision and kind of said, look, I don't understand why you made that decision. Appreciate it's your decision, but surely you can get her in for a coffee, have a chat with her. Don't just phone up the night before a game and say you can't. You're not doing a volunteer role. I said, trust me, this ain't going to go down well for the club PR wise. I think they underestimated that. The individual who made the phone call to Carol wasn't the one who made the decision, but still made the phone call. And I said to the individual, you need to speak to Preston and say, look, have a think about this, because I don't think you understand what you're about to do. And that advice wasn't taken. That's down to them. So obviously that blew up. Of course it blew up. I mean, I think the tweet that got nearly 3 million views that Carol did, and obviously Carol's done a fantastic job. Didn't get paid for it. It's interesting that if we talk about the tweet that Carol made, she didn't tag Preston Johnson in the tweet. Preston replied to it. There's been other tweets that have tagged Preston in, which have been far worse, which you can look at. Anyone can look at, that, in my opinion, haven't been managed with. And that was my challenge. Was, hang on a minute, the chairman hasn't been tagged in this tweet, but he's replied. He's not happy about it. Preston's been tagged in other tweets, which are far worse, but he hasn't done anything about it, as far as I'm aware. Yeah. So why has he chosen to reply to it? It wasn't derogatory. It was her stating an opinion. Should she have done it as a volunteer at the club? Maybe not. But that's where you say you have a chat with her, have a conversation with her. You don't just do it over the phone and then at a fans forum say she had a code of conduct when she didn't have a code of conduct, which I'm sure we'll come on to later. And also tell her on the phone, you're going to get a letter sent to you, and that letter has never even been produced, let alone sent. So more integrity around, you're going to get a letter, you haven't got a letter. Why say you're going to get a letter and then say you have sent a letter, we haven't sent a letter? Facts. There's no proof of the letter. In businesses that operate successfully, if you remove someone from a role, you typically send a letter recorded delivery as well. So it'd be interesting to know if that recorded delivery letter was sent, because the Royal Mail got a lot to answer for. Which would be unfair to the Royal Mail because it wasn't sent. So yeah, you've got the Carol Bates situation, which was a decent individual with leadership experience, managing a business would never handle like that. Fact. And the fact that Preston at Fans Forum kind of tries to defend it when we had a conversation about it, and then 20, 30 seconds later, maybe it was my biggest mistake, demonstrates that he's got the leadership qualities. That's fact. He's got the leadership
qualities. There's an indecisiveness there, isn't there?
Yeah,
ultimately,
you either stick by the decision, you don't stick by the decision, or if you made a wrong decision, hold your hands up, apologise, and reverse it. And he hasn't reversed it. That's on him, isn't it? So, and also has been intimated to me by leadership at the club that Carol needs to reach out. Sorry, no, they need to reach out to Carol. So there was a Carol Bates situation. Then there was the fans forum where I went and I sat on my hands for 10 minutes, and I was like, I can't listen to this because it was just infuriating me. Got up and said a few things which people can watch. I haven't really watched. I'm not going to go through that. And then obviously I was aware that obviously that didn't give off a great perception of me having that conversation in public with Preston, which I was aware of. That weekend, I then went to Devil's Advocate meeting, where the night before I was asked to sign a code of conduct digitally, and the code of conduct was listed the club procedures and policies that I had to adhere by, but I've never seen any club policies and procedures. So if you've been asked to sign a code of conduct when there's club policies and procedures to adhere by, it's always clever to read those. So I asked to read them, but they weren't available at the time. So I signed it without it, attended the Devil's Advocate meeting.
So can we just pause on that? So
Sorry, go on.
you've been asked to sign a code of conduct, and you hadn't yet seen the policies they referred to.
Yeah.
And Carol Bates at the Fans Forum, we were publicly told that she was removed because she broke a code of conduct that hadn't been produced by that point, and she also hadn't signed at that point.
Yeah, there was no code of conduct produced until after the event.
Yeah.
And also the code of conduct that was given to the Devil's Advocate members isn't fit for purpose. It's more fit for people employed by the football club, not football volunteers.
Wow.
So,
okay.
Obviously February rolls on. I kind of go quiet. People might have seen I've been on the podcast, being very quiet on social media, kind of letting things play out, mulling things over, seeing how things go. Pardon me. And then the Friday for Blackpool, got a phone call from Ben Levin, giving me an ultimatum that I had to pick between the Devil's Advocate and the club or the CTSA. And that whatever I picked, I needed to go public on. So I was quite upset by that, for honest, because I'm not sure why I should pick. Ben said because the CTSA made a stance that they want WAGMI out. And I understand that perspective. But actually, the members of CTSA have done that. The CTSA board have done a poll, and the members have stated that. Okay, so and the club have had the opportunity to meet with the CTSA to understand that survey and listen to the comments, but chosen not to, which we'll come on to later. So I said to Ben on the phone, well, you asked me to make a decision. I believe it was 21st of February at the time. You have asked for the code of conduct. If I'm going to make a decision either way, I need to know what I'm signing up for. So I still don't have the club policy procedure sent to me to review as part of the club's code of conduct. So I gave him 7 days to send those to me. 4 or 5 days later, I dropped in my inbox, club policy and procedures, believe it or not, dated in February. So they were created. And
so they were created then. That wasn't a revision of an existing document. That was a brand
new
document.
They're dated in February. Which just spoke 1,000 words to me. You can't create a code of conduct asking you to do this. Club policy procedures don't exist. And bear in mind, the club are currently going for an employment tribunal, which is quite public. How can they not have policies and procedures in place, but we're going through an employment tribunal? Which I'm going to obviously be mindful of what I say because I'm going court case, but it's always good for a business to have club policies and procedures and a grievance policy and a disciplinary policy in place to manage employers.
Pretty standard practice, yeah. Pretty standard practice.
So I received that. And I've got an opinion on them, which I'm sure everyone has. Who has or hasn't read them, who's employed by the club or volunteer for the club. And I kind of had to make a decision, and I went back to Ben with a very, very lengthy email of the reasons why I would be resigning from the club and the Devil's Advocate board. We had a couple of emails in exchange, and that was 27th, 28th February, just before the Cambridge game. Ben didn't want me to announce it publicly, despite telling me he wanted to announce it publicly which way I picked. I think he thought I was going to pick the club side, and I don't think there should be a side. I made that very clear in my email to him, but I don't think there should be a side between the club and the fans. I think it should be united. So I wasn't going to announce anything until the end of the season. I said that to people close to me. CTSA board, I was very clear. I'm not going to say anything until the season's concluded because I didn't want to impact the players on the pitch. The reason I decided to announce it the day after the Cambridge game was because the director of football didn't think we were going to stay up. So the director of football didn't think we were going to stay up. It doesn't matter when I announce it. And also I was very aware that what happened at the Fans Forum, I was very aware that Ben had actually started telling people without me being aware. So people had spoke to me about it. So I was like, well, Ben's telling people. And the Director of Football was going to get relegated. And then the incident with Tobias, which I was seen publicly handling, people were aware of that. They were going to ask questions. So that's why I announced it on the Sunday after the Cambridge game. So sad times really, just because uh, whatever people think of WAGMI, they are investing millions and millions of pounds, which a lot of people might be like, why is Sam not happy with WAGMI to put millions of pounds in? Yeah, that's a fair challenge because they'll put millions of pounds in. But, if you're in a relationship with someone and they are financially, and you're financially, what's the word now? If you're financially reliant on them and the relationship's not going well for whatever reason, whether that is just not happy or abuse or whatever, you don't stay in that relationship just because you're financially reliant on them,
Yeah.
because that's not the right thing to do. So I can't question or be ungrateful for Wagon putting millions of pounds in, but you can still challenge them for making the mistakes they've made continuously and making the decisions made. And we're still 3 years on talking about the same mistakes, talking about why have they not got someone running the football club who knows what they're doing, to make sure employment contracts are correct, to make sure there's policies and procedures in place. And it's funny, a lot of people say to me, well, not a lot of people, a few people say to me, why do you care so much about the off-pitch stuff? Well, the off-pitch stuff is as important to me because it's amazing in League One and League Two, and I want to stay in the Football League as long as possible, of course, to. But I also make sure it's sustainable off the pitch, because I've seen lots of football clubs go by the wayside. We've had lots of bad owners in the past. So the off-pitch performance is as important as the on-pitch performance, which I appreciate is not necessarily every normal fan thinks, and that's just the way I do, and have and probably always will do. So, yeah, and Wacker have done some great things. They've built the fan zone, the ticket prices, which obviously were great to start with. You could argue they probably should increase them for League One,
Yeah.
but that's another conversation. So they have done some great stuff, and the fact they've tried something different, I said kind of 18 months ago, fair play to them for trying. It hasn't obviously worked, but now what's the plan? There is no commercial strategy. There's no plan. There's no one employed on the commercial side of the business to move the business forward, having been promoted to League One. So what is the plan? So, yeah, I think it's my job today with this recording just to let the fans know where we are, and they can make their own decisions. I've got my opinions, and a lot of people might just assume what my opinion is. But it's not my job to tell people how they should think or feel. I feel it's my job as a Crawley Town supporter to give the Crawley Town fans the facts and the information that I'm privy to from my role, so they can make their own decision and informed choice. And people might say, "Oh, Sam's lying." I keep receipts. So I've got receipts. So if people wants to come and have a look or check it, I've got receipts. So I've got no problem with that. But
Well, you heard that here
yeah, it's
first.
difficult.
So if we just touch before we come on to WAGMI, because I think there's a few questions we need to touch on, for better or for worse. Just heading back to what we were just discussing, reference code of conducts and policies. Was everyone in the Devil's Advocates asked to sign the code of conduct? And have they? Were you aware?
I don't know for a fact is the answer. I've spoken to a couple of people. One doesn't remember signing it. One said they did sign it. Obviously, they would have signed it without reading the club policies and procedures. I bumped into. There was one meeting of Devil's Advocates, as far as I'm aware, so far. I bumped into someone at the Huddersfield game who said they're no longer doing it, which is their choice. I won't go into the reasons why, because that's down to them. But yeah, they've chosen not to do it so anymore, which is a shame, because obviously the club was set up for a reason. And actually, me and Ben had conversations about setting it up and the purpose behind it, and I believe the core values behind it are good. It'll be interesting to see what the execution's like. And the people I met on the first meeting seemed nice, and there was a lot of new faces, which was great. The FSA would say it's not fan elected, when it should be. And bear in mind, we've already had the fan council, which again wasn't fan elected. There's a bit of question around that, but I think the purpose behind it is good, and the club are trying to do the right thing. Whether or not they end up doing the right thing with it or not, only time will tell. So I don't know if everyone was asked to sign a code of conduct, but yeah, if they weren't given any club policies and procedures with it, because they were created 4 years later.
It's a shame that seemingly already, as we've seen a few times both this season and throughout the tenure of WAGMI, that they start something and they don't continue it in a reasonable and timely fashion, or in a manner that it should be completed. The Devil's Advocates can only be of benefit, but we're potentially. When was it first announced? Back end of last year. people applied all through into January, and then it was announced, and there's been one meeting in the last sort of 6 to 8 weeks since it was formed. So disappointing that they have only had one meeting, and that people, well, at least two people, yourself and one other, have already felt the need to resign from it, when that shouldn't be the case through what the purpose of it is. Let's move on to WAGMI now then, in a bit more detail. So you've obviously mentioned that they've put a lot of money into the club, and of course as fans we are grateful for that. Because they put a lot of money in the club, it doesn't mean they're devoid of criticism, because they put a lot of money in, and there has been some positives, but there's still a lot of negatives around it as well, and maybe not always the money going into the right places potentially. And you've also mentioned the positives that WAGMI have done in terms of ticket prices, which I think everyone could agree, still being certainly maybe the lowest in League One, potentially the whole Football League, is fantastic. Obviously, we don't know what next season will bring as of yet, with potential relegation looming and the loss in revenue from there. Who are the people behind WAGMI? Who are KB Sport and Leisure and Dre Vision and the Khalil brothers? I think I've referenced as well in recent times. There seems to be a lot of fingers in the pie of Crawley Town Football Club. So who are the people leading this? Who are the people behind it? Because we only ever see Ben Levin, Preston Johnson, and the name of Eben Smith, and a couple of others make themselves known on social media. And that's sort of 4 or 5 names we're aware of in public. But, there's a WAGMI United website, and that references potentially up to 30 names alone, before adding in other companies and people I've referenced, such as Dre and KB Sports and Khalil, etc. So who are the people behind WAGMI?
Don't know. I've only ever spoke to Preston, Eben, and Ben. I've met Ryan Gilbert. Seems like a really nice guy as well. But yeah, there's lots of names that band about, but there's no real clarity or transparency, which I think some fans have got concerns about, and I understand that, because who is WAGMI? Are they United? What's their plan? So yeah, I can answer that question for you, because obviously, as far as I'm aware, there were no board meetings. There was board meetings. I wasn't invited. And if there was, I don't know what they discuss. And obviously, they haven't appointed a CEO who probably would encourage that transparency, maybe, or at least be able to answer some questions about that, maybe in a more professional manner. The fans forum, obviously, it was raised about the Cleedy Brothers and the Twitter account. Got no idea if it's theirs. Preston didn't really clear that up very well either, which didn't really help the situation. So yeah, don't know really, is the answer.
I guess it's a concern as well, because with so many people potentially being involved, how have the EFL monitored it in terms of doing a proper fit and ownership test?
Yeah, I agree. Who's done the owners directors test? I agree. Yeah.
So that's a concern, because I don't know how that information's able to be found out, if it is even able to be found out. But with lots of people investing and invested, that dilutes things quite a lot, and is a concern about who's truly heading this whole acquisition of the club over the last 3 years. And obviously we've been funded, but as some of the members of WAGMI, such as Preston and Ben, have recently said, they're pumping in a lot of money and losing a lot of money, and there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of change throughout their tenure so far. So how long is it before certain people within that WAGMI group either get bored or want to cut their losses, and how long before there's potential internal conflict? So that's a concern. Speaking of Preston, it's been documented he's not been at the last at least 2 home games. Any idea where he's been or why he's been missing? Probably since the Cambridge game.
No idea. No. Preston's chosen not to talk to me for a considerable amount of time now. So no idea. Could be back home seeing his family. I was led to believe his family are moving over here, but no idea. Couldn't answer that question, unfortunately.
And what's your opinion? What's your stance on directors travelling to away games, do you feel that we should always have a club representative at every game, home and away, or are you of the
Yeah, I
opinion
mean,
that there should at least be
there,
someone at a home game?
there is always a club representative of the game. Obviously, Tom Blessing travels home and away every game and represents the club, which fair play to him, especially when the tough times this season. But when you've got so many owners, yeah, you'd like to think 23 league away games that would be representative. I don't think anyone was at Blackpool. I don't think anyone was at Huddersfield recently. I believe someone was at Bolton. But yeah, it doesn't make sense to me why at least one of the owners couldn't be at each game to represent the football club, as there is so many of them involved. That's just my personal opinion.
So we've discussed you leaving the role you were doing, which seemingly was being underutilised for the last couple of years. Would you want a similar role in the future, regardless of who the owners are?
My wife, who is exceptionally supportive, would probably rather I didn't. It can be quite stressful. When you go back to the bit around the team selection and the club crest, that weighs heavy on your shoulders. That weighs heavy on your shoulders, knowing that information, not being able to share it, and not know what to do with it. So I think if I go back to the team selection bit, I mean, you could argue that if it wasn't for me, the club might have done that, and I stopped it. And I think I was right to stop it. But that decision weighs heavy on me in terms of having that responsibility to make that decision. And the same with the new crest. It's like, blimey, like I've been engaged on this. I don't want my character, my reputation to be brought into the mix of those who aren't happy with it when I'm not happy with it either. Hence, part of the reason I made the decision, which the club are aware of. I've been impressed on that. Would I want to do it going forward? I think I can add value. I think I can add value, and I've got experience. So yes, I would. I'm not naive. I don't doubt for a minute WAGMI won't be interested in me doing it anymore. But I've been a fan for more than 30 years, and we've had various owners. And I think it was quite nice when I stepped down. Actually, I had a message from a previous owner and a message from a previous CEO, which just demonstrates the positive relations I have had with previous people, and what I could have in the future with people. And doing this today has been a big decision for me, and I've undenied for weeks and weeks and weeks. But I kept coming back. It's not about me. It's not about me. I didn't do this role for me. I haven't gained anything from doing this role. It's taken a lot of time. It's been stressful. I've done it for the fans, and it's only right the fans know all the information about our current owners. And some people might be like, "Oh, you've said too much and you broke confidence." Well, I don't think I have, because my job's to communicate with the fans and the owners, which I've done, and there's some stuff I haven't shared. But I think it's important what I've shared was the right thing, and it's the right time now to do so. So the long answer to your question, the short answer to your question is yes, I'd be happy to do it again. But obviously, it's not just about me. It's probably got thousands of fans, and someone else might be more suitable to do it next time if the occasion arises. But yeah, I think I'd value and I've got experience. So let's see what the future holds, Luke. Let's see. You never know. We could have a new owner in a few weeks. I don't know that. Just I don't know how it's going to happen. But who knows what's going to happen in football? So I'm a big golf fan, and for those who follow golf, obviously there was the new Live Tour and the PJ Tour hated them, and the next thing they know, they're sitting next to each other on a TV channel agreeing to merge. So you never know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to happen. But
do we?
Yeah.
Do we? You've obviously referenced the decision on the third shirt, playing, which I'm staggered by, getting fans to vote on who plays in a competitive football match. I think is bewildering. We obviously had earlier in the season the Reggie the Red release of a new version, and I believe it was referenced that at the time it was in agreement with the CTSA, or the CTSA had been liaised with surrounding it, when in reality they'd referenced to you they might have been doing that. Do you feel like situations like that, like the third shirt, they see it as opportunities to just scapegoat themselves or use you as a scapegoat in order to remove some of the backlash from them, because they can state, well, we've consulted fans, we've consulted who we've not employed, but who is currently doing the role of fan representative. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, part of the reason that I chose to step down and chosen to announce it now was I wanted to do it before it became public about the third shirt. Because last time when it was come to go, we spoke to Sam Jordan about it. Well, he did speak to me about it, but I didn't agree with it, and I said to me to make sure I do the engagement piece right. So yeah, I don't think they have used me as a scapegoat. It's important to be fair and balanced. It doesn't mean they won't in the future or they haven't behind closed doors. Um, but yeah, they haven't used the fan council in the right way. Whether they're going to use devil's advocate in the right way, I don't know. But it, the football legislation that's coming around about clubs engaging fans is what we need, because fans should be engaged if the crest is changing. And there's lots of fans out there who absolutely can add value. I saw someone on social media say they could paint the stadium potentially, and yeah, if the fans are using it the right way, it's massive. I mean, Burgess Hill local football club, based on volunteers. Do you know what I mean? So just because they're in the lower league doesn't mean that we can do the same. It's about how you engage people and get people on board, isn't it? So as I mentioned earlier, we see to say took loads of time, Ruben took loads of time to design the bios, if you like, of all the board members, what we could do in our vein. It never came back to us. It's free labour. It's free
Yeah.
labour. And sometimes those who are critical of things will work harder to change the negatives of what they're criticising. So why not get those people on side and get them to help you? I don't know. It's crazy.
Okay, and then the big one, I guess, at the moment is: do you think the relationship can be repaired between you and WAGMI, the CTSA and WAGMI, fans of WAGMI, to sort of all come together and take this club forward?
That's up to them. I'll tell you what, that's up to them. Ruben Watt, the CTC chair, reached out to them by email on the 21st of February, 2nd of March, and 12th of March, and has been ignored on every occasion. And there'll be some people out there who might say, well, why would they talk to CTC? Okay, I can see that. But Preston Johnson came out in the press last week and said that the CTC are going publicly and slamming the club. Well, the CTC have tried to make contact and they've been ignored. So don't come out and say that we're slamming the club publicly when we've tried to meet, or I say we and CTC have tried to meet privately and have that conversation, but it's been declined, and the CTC have got an obligation to update their members what's happening. So, yeah, there's obviously in that quote as well, Preston mentioned there wasn't a lot of time given in between the contact from the club, but there was a week. It was a week. It was Wednesday to Wednesday's a week. So the email was sent 5th of March, and the CCMA announced 12th of March. The club had a week to come back, which I think is reasonable, and they chose not to. But yeah, any decent CEO would have handled that situation much better. So the right thing for the club and the supporters is for there to be some sort of reconciliation. Absolutely. But a relationship will never recover if the part of the relationship doesn't admit their faults, address their mistakes, and put something in place to ensure those mistakes don't continue. And for 3 years, there's been constant mistakes, either repetitive or similar, made over and over and over again. And if I'm in a relationship and I continue to make the same mistakes, I identify the root cause and I fix it. They haven't done that. So that's on to them. That's on them. And yes, they've given us Wembley, and that's fantastic. Some people say that was Scott and the players. Some people say, oh, they recruited the players. But they also recruited the players and the manager team that we nearly exited the Football League in their first year. They've also recruited the players and the manager who are now going to see us leave League One. So you have to take all 3 years and form an opinion, in my opinion, as much as Wembley was amazing. So I don't know, it's up to them. But they're the ones that need to go, yeah, we hold our hands up, we understand your observations and we're going to do something about it. Or they just continue to bury their heads in the sand and make the same mistakes over and over and over again. That's on them, that's up to them.
And we've seen some big mistakes this season off the field, haven't we, with the potential case that the Guardian announced regarding the potential issues there, and also earlier in the season with an ex-player who joined in the summer was potentially given a contract which wasn't legal by EFL standards, and that I assume is potentially still ongoing as well, from when that was leaked at the latter stages of last year. So we've had two really big incidents leaked for negative publicity from shortfallings that the club have done, which is again another reason why we want to see some further transparency and further understand what's going on behind the scenes, because there's clearly evidence there to assume that maybe the current leadership team aren't fit for purpose in what they need to be doing to run this football club competently. You did touch on the fact that...
Sorry, just on that note, the club have claimed that the support unrest has led to players not being signed in January. And I can see that observation, and whether that's been said or not, Preston's claimed that agents have said that. I think also if you just put certain individuals' names who work for the club or the club in social media, they'll see that why they want to work for people who have done certain things as well, and they'll pick up the phone and they'll find out we're not training on grass, we're now training on 3 Bridges, 3G. They'll pick up the phone and talk to ex-players who last season, also in the summer, didn't want to leave but were told they needed to leave because they wanted to take the money. So yeah, there might be a fan unrest, but I'm telling you now, the fans don't want to be unhappy. They're happy because of something that's happened. So, do you know what I mean? Don't just turn unhappy overnight from Wembley. Like, there's reasons for that. So, why don't you look in the mirror and understand why they're unhappy and address that, rather than blame the fans for players not signing? Like, that's baffling to me.
Well, we can point to some quite evident words or statements that were put out by former players. If you look at Danilo Orsi's leaving statement, where he referenced not being given the opportunity to give it a go in League One with this squad this year, certainly put some comments about players wanting to leave into kind of in a hazy situation as to whether that was true that players just wanted out, or if they wanted all to stick together. Some players, I'm sure, wanted to leave and probably did get offered better money. So that's a shame that we never got to find out and get that opportunity. We obviously got promoted last year. You mentioned we got to Wembley, the best day in the club's history, certainly in my opinion. Why didn't we capitalise on promotion? It was our highest stock, the highest the club stock has ever been. Okay, and we had the opportunity to find out 17,000 people go to Wembley, which is probably 6 times our usual gate for last season or for the last multiple seasons. Why was no one employed, a commercial manager, someone with background knowledge to increase revenue and ensure that if in the potential, the possibility we were going back down, at least to retain some numbers that we would likely have lost, and at least know that if we go back down to League Two, our numbers are still going to be higher than what they were the season we got promoted. Why wouldn't the club maybe look at hiring?
No idea. Me and Press had a meeting with the owners. I can't put a date on it, but last calendar year, and we said about what's the commercial strategy, and the CTSA actually even created a document with all the CTSA board members' experience and attributes and how they could add value to the club if the club wanted some support, obviously free. That hasn't been used. So I also created something for them as well that would support a marketing and commercial strategy. Whether that's been used or not, I don't know. But yeah, I'd be really interested to know what the club's figures are from a commercial point of view. I listen to Dan McAnthony, the owner of Peterborough's podcast, every week because I think he's just a great character and I think he's done well at Peterborough. And actually, Peterborough is in a similar position to us, not that long ago, really, in terms of size of club, gates, bottom half League Two, and he's kind of spent lots of money on the academy and built the fan base. But that's something we could have done or we could still do. So it hasn't just splashed the clash on loads of players like some clubs do, like Wrexham, for example. He's invested in the academy and growing it. And he mentioned a few weeks ago, I thought it was really interesting how they had 3 members of staff of the commercial team. And he was talking to his commercial manager, and his commercial manager said, "Yeah, we're doing all right." And he said, "We want you to hire 2 more people." His commercial manager was like, "Why?" He goes, "We want you to get more." more commercial in, and those two people have paid them for themselves and more, but we haven't got anyone. Like, I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, why we wouldn't ride the crest of the wave of playing in front of bigger crowds? The 17,000 that went to Wembley, the more TV games. No idea why you wouldn't just hire someone decent commercial experience to go and make money now when we're in League One. Because if we're all honest with you, I walked out Wembley and I turned to my family and I said, at least that guarantees us another 2 seasons in the Football League. You never know. We're Crawley Town. We've finished in the bottom half of League Two for the last 10 years, outside of this season and the previous one to that. So we're always going to be underdogs, but we should have absolutely capitalised on that. And it's interesting. Someone said to me a few days ago, when WAGMI came in, their 2-year plan was to make sure that we were in League One, otherwise the leadership team and chairmen would step down at the time, Evan and Preston. Someone said to me, why have you done so badly this season then? I was like, what do you mean? I said, well, their plan was to get promoted after 2 seasons, so why have we done so bad on the pitch? Because they surely with a plan to invest in the squad, to those initial contracts as players who got us there, to have better release clauses or to stay, rather than just everyone go and then us not signing enough players. Like, that's a fair point. I didn't even thought about that. I hadn't even thought about that. But actually, that's right, that's fair. If that's their 2-year plan to get to League One, what was the plan? We get there and we go, oh, I don't know what to do, because appreciate Stockport Wrexham are bigger than us, but they had a plan when they got here. Look where they are. I don't expect to get promoted out of this league. So I mean, I'm not an idiot. But what was the plan? Because you should have a plan, but there is no plan. There's no commercial plan. There's no marketing plan. There's no. I mean, I was on the train to Huddersfield and someone said, I wonder when our kits are going to be reduced. What do you mean reduced? So, well, there's only 5 home games left. When are they going to get half price? Oh, that's a good point, actually. And then every single club I've been to the last 4 or 5 weeks, they're all reducing their shirts. So what are we going to do? We're not going to take half price. We're just going to reduce them for 10 quid. As an example, what's the plan seeing ticket prices? What's the plan match day price next year? I appreciate they'll probably wait on the leagues and that from that perspective. But yeah, like what's the plan? So there is no plan. There is no plan.
It's a concern, isn't it? You look at it, and obviously last season was a whirlwind. Certainly the last third of the season was a whirlwind. We were languishing bottom half, although it only really took a couple of results to jump us up the league. We had that increase in revenue. I don't know what the numbers are, and maybe I should have done a bit more research beforehand. But that revenue can't have been expected to have been there this season in March, arguably even April. It's baffling how we would have had a dramatically increased revenue maybe to what you'd have thought they were planning to have had, because it looked likely we were going to be in League Two still up until 4:30 on the final day of the season when we scraped into the playoffs. What's happened with all that revenue? If it's gone back into the squad, why wasn't it maybe reinvested into the existing squad and then strengthened around that, rather than a whole just influx of new players and everyone who was already here being sold off? So I think that's also a real concern. Is I appreciate that they maybe then allowed them to put a bit less of their own money in this summer, but ultimately, as you mentioned with Peterborough, they've invested no end in off the field personnel. They've invested in academy as well, and through investing in that academy, they've got players, and that in itself has allowed them to sell players for more money than we've probably ever sold multiple players for example. So they have managed to find that niche and figure that out. We don't even seem to be, and I'm not saying we should have had that be there yet, but we haven't even, looks like, started on those stepping stones, which is a real concern. And a big one as well then is stadium sponsorship. That would have been huge revenue to the club this season. Increased TV games, increased revenues through increased gate receipts. Everything was a positive. Why do you think there was no plan to get the stadium sponsored? There was rumours, obviously, that there was maybe a gambling opportunity, which the club, rightly or wrongly, felt wasn't right to do. But yeah, that can't have been the only opportunity that offered itself.
Yeah, no idea. Whether it was the club that wanted a too high a price, whether people weren't interested, not sure to be honest. You'd be right on the back of Wembley. Surely people will jump on it. Obviously, all these big clubs come into League One Crawley and come into, I don't know, the Rentokil Stadium, just because it's on the front of my shirt at the moment. Um, I don't know, but if you haven't got a commercial team to go out and get deals, you're not going to get deals. You're just going to fall upon them or the new existing ones. And look, Ben Levin's done some good work trying to improve the relationship with the community, but that's like me trying to have a really good relationship with my wife's sister, but not focus on my relationship with my wife. It doesn't matter. I've got a great relationship with my wife's sister, but not my wife. My wife's going to leave me. So, or she's going to become disgruntled with me. So, guess what? The club haven't got a great relationship with the fans. So they're disgruntled with the club. It doesn't matter if you've got a good relationship with other aspects of the community who might just come to the odd game or just trying to grow the club, because they're going to Google and have a look and understand what's happening. So,
Well, let's
yeah.
touch on these last couple of questions then. While you're touching on communication, which is obviously vital for any ownership model, any club needs to communicate to its fan base. Do you think the CTSA could try a different angle to communicate with the club?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I'm not passing the buck here because obviously I'm very much involved in CTSA. But if anyone's got a suggestion on a different angle, let us know. If anyone
Okay.
wants to be a reconciliation member between the club and CTSA, let us know. The CTSA have been talking to the FSA regularly. FSA are trying to support that relationship, which has been great help. But yeah, let us know. The CTSA are in a very difficult position because they don't want to communicate too much, but they don't want to communicate too little. A lot of what happens has to remain private, but then you get to the point where people do start asking questions around what CTSA are doing, and they have to come out and say stuff. So yeah, and I get why the club might not be happy to say. The first season they wanted the owners out. I get that. But we need left the Football League. So yeah, I mean, it was warranted, I believe, in my opinion. So yeah, for those who don't know, the FSA is a Football Supporters Association, which the CTSA are members of, and most sports organisations are members of. So yeah, I mean, don't phone up a loyal fan who's a volunteer the night before a game, they're volunteering at, tell them they're not coming back because of a tweet that wasn't derogatory and was replied to by the chairman in a sarcastic manner. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
It's concerning, isn't
don't.
it? I think there has to be an element of concern about uh, the headspace potentially of the leadership team in how obviously we don't condone anyone having to accept um, feeling insulted, but you're allowed to be criticised if you're not doing something properly or correctly. And
But Luke, the chairman of our football club has never led any organisation or any business in his whole life.
correct, yeah,
So it's unfair on him as well to have the expectation that he can then just go and do that at the switch of a light. Hire someone. I said it
but
before,
yeah,
and it's on
and that's
record.
on
He
and
should
that's on him and
be
his
sitting
team
in the
around him,
executive
isn't it?
area, drinking champagne while someone runs his football club. That's what he should do. He should hire someone. So yeah, that's on him, isn't it? If my son was at secondary school and was struggling with English and needed help and wanted extracurricular English and I didn't know how to do it, well, I wouldn't just try and do it myself or spend hours upskilling myself and do a bad job. I'd use someone who knows what they're doing. It's just basic human knowledge, isn't it? Common sense. Maybe I'm being unfair.
No, I think that is fair. That is fair. Ultimately, people of leadership with leadership qualities also usually understand where their shortfallings are, and that's why they employ people around them who can help them do a better job. So yeah, that absolutely stands to point. Um, Last question then before we wrap up this evening. The season's gone. I think fair to say worse than what we were expecting. We are now 12 points adrift, I think, with 9 games to go, approximately, maybe slightly more. What's next in terms of the rest of the season and over the summer? We've had a season a bit like the first season, where off the field antics have played as big a part as what's gone on the field. Unfortunately, this time round we are. It looks less likely we're going to have that miraculous saving. Do you think there should be a form of protest against the ownership now? Do you think that actually the relationship is that far gone? There's evidence that they don't want to talk to the CTSA. They aren't communicating with fans particularly well through various measures. So, what are the next steps?
It's really difficult. Being a football fan is incredibly tough because you can't pick your owners, but you also aren't going to go and change your football club. If you go into the local supermarket, you're not happy with it, you go to the other local supermarket. But your football club, you're not just going to pick another football club. So if you're not happy with owners, you've either got to suck it up and get on with it, or you've got to try and do what you can to give them that feedback and hope they become better. So, and we've seen lots of fans who have protested at other football clubs, Reading, and I could name many others. Depends what fans want. Depends what fans want. If fans want change, they need to voice it. If fans are happy with what they want and what they've got, then they need to crack on. But I'm telling you now, what's the plan next season? What's the plan next season? What Crawley Town going to do next season to remain in League Two? What's the plan? There hasn't been a plan for the last 3 seasons. But last season was a fluke. Absolute fluke. That's not me taking anything away from the recruitment, Scott, or the team. But I bet Scott Leeds will be the first one to tell you, wow, what an achievement. Through tremendous hard work and deserved, but like, wow, how did that happen? But what's the plan? No one can tell what the plan is because I don't think there is one. So if people are happy that we're going to League Two next season without a plan, crack on. If people just want to turn up, watch the game, fine. I want to know what my football club are going to do to grow the football club off the pitch, and therefore grow on the pitch as well. And they can't tell me that, and they can't tell anyone that, and also they're alienating people along the way while they're doing it. So whether people want to shout from the stands what they think, whether they want to stand outside reception, demand a meeting with the owners, whether they want to do whatever they want to do is up to them. But we're going to get relegated this season because, well, we're not going to make up 13 points when you do goal difference of 9 games to go. We've only won 5 of the last 35, unfortunately. And I think a lot of fans did expect to get relegated this year because we've mass punched by the weight. But it's probably just been the manner, isn't it? The manner of some of the games and throwing away leads and not really strengthening in January. And I think it's important for me to know. I do feel for the coaching staff because I don't think they've been given what they probably would have been told they were going to be given, whether that be on the pitch or off the pitch, and they've moved away from their families. And people like Louis Story have taken their first coaching job and kind of virtually retired from playing. And I mean, Rob's left a club he was doing really well at to come down here. And is it fair to assess Rob having picked up a team that wasn't his, didn't know style of play, massive punches above their weight?
It's fair to say that we weren't exactly putting in performances prior to Rob Elliott either. I think towards the end of Scott Lindsay's tenure, performances were very similar. We had a couple of heavy defeats and we weren't exactly lighting up games. So there's evidence to suggest that you can't pin this on Rob Elliott and his team.
But why does Scott leave a League One club to go to a League Two club? Like, surely WAGMI should be looking and going, why couldn't we keep him? And that's not a criticism of Scott because MK Dons are a bigger football club than us. Crawley fans won't want to hear that, but they are a bigger football club than us. And he's probably seen actually he could potentially get him to top half of League One. Obviously he hasn't, and things haven't worked out. And hopefully he goes on to replicate what he did with us elsewhere. But yeah, not many people do that. Not many people leave a club and go to one below. Their choice. Why didn't we back him? Why didn't we do what he wanted us to do? And obviously I think that just says it all without knowing the ins and outs. Says it all for me that he didn't believe in the project that there was for Crawley Town over the next 2-3 years.
And I think that's the concern, isn't it? Will we see a lot of these players in a Crawley shirt next season, or will we have the same as what has happened the last, every year pretty much under WAGMI, certainly the last two, where we have mass outgoings and mass incomings, and the budget's going to be heavily reduced. So are we going to have, again, a much more a squad that maybe isn't capable of competing in League Two is the concern, and are we going to be back down to where we were under season 1 of WAGMI, or where we have been for a lot of our time in this session, in the last period of us in League Two, where we were in that lower 14 downward range, which is the concern that it's going to go a bit like a Forest Green Rovers, who themselves off the pitch are in at least a much better place than what we seemingly are, if you look at things.
Yeah. Someone grabbed me at a recent home game, and they've been there a long time, and they said, the club of our size should be mid-table National League. I said, I don't disagree with you. But we're here now. Let's do everything we can to stay here. And what's the plan to try and stay here? Because I can't see or hear a plan. Because if you want to go back there, well, fine. But why would you want to go back there? If you're able, if your budget is to go to Butlins on holiday every year, no respect to Butlins, but you are able to go to Barbados every year, well, why are you going to Butlins? You ain't, aren't you? So why can't we try and keep going to Barbados every year? Because I want to go back to Butlins, and that's not mean disrespect to National League, because there's some big football clubs in there, and I grew up watching Crawley in the Southern League, and so I understand where we've come from more than as a lot of people do, and more than a lot of the new people do. So I get we're punching above weight. I'm well aware of punching above weight, but we're punching above weight now. Let's do everything we can to stay here. Why wouldn't we? Why not just hold my hands up and go, great, let's go back? Because are we ever going to come back? Look at the team in the National League now trying to come back. Like, the Hartlepool's best time. We were going to get Hartlepool, didn't we?
Yeah.
Then they were near coming back. So yeah, Scunthorpe in the National League North.
Well, we've been in the EFL now for what, 14 years, roughly 13 years between League One and League Two. I think that's fair to say we've certainly made our home in the EFL in the last decade, and we should, in theory, be an established EFL club. You look at the likes of Accrington Stanley, Harrogate, and other teams around us who've come up and exceeded us. You look at Lincoln City as well, who came up many years after us, and through good FA Cup runs similar to us. They were a very similar trajectory and lineage to us in a way, and they seem to be in a much better position than we are, which is a potential concern. And a lot of that does come down to decisions that are made off the pitch, and not just about those who are on it, because there has to be a long-term plan. And the concern is that maybe there isn't that longevity in place, and a lot of it is short-term thinking at our club at the moment, which is worrying. I think it's potentially a good place to end it. I think we've been chatting a long time, and you've done a lot of talking tonight for your first pod back in 3 months. I think we found the title of the pod comparing it to Butlins or Barbados, so we'll get Ruben to note that down as a potential title for the pod. But goes without saying that we obviously support Rob Elliott on the pitch. We support the playing staff. We only want them to do well and win games on Saturdays and Tuesdays. It's a shame we are where we are. It isn't necessarily their fault that we are where we are, because they've been recruited to this club through means, and it hasn't worked out. So obviously we wish the boys and the management team all the best for Saturday in what's still a big game, albeit it's looking less likely. So all the best for Saturday for all of them. Sam, thank you for joining us tonight in what's our first videoed podcast, which will be going up on the YouTube channel. So if you like it, please do let us know in the comment section on YouTube, which feels weird to say. Let us know if you prefer the audio, the visual, and we will strive to bring you better content between now and the end of the season and heading into next season. So for the final time today, come on you Reds.
Come on you Reds.